Talk
Well,
about it.
well, yeah, like, well, maybe I'll just say this. I won't talk a lot, but I'll just say that, Amir and we've been talking for a while about doing some work together, and you reached out to me. What was it, a few weeks ago now? I can't remember exactly when, about how you had this idea for a group. We didn't even have the name then, and how uh, you wanted to do something for principals coaches or coaches in general, and we just, like, I can't even remember, we were, every time we've spoken, we've meant to speak for like a few minutes, and then we've ended up talking for ages and being completely on the same page about so many things. We kind of put this into the calendar. I can't say diary because you guys don't use the word diary in the same way in the US. Diary is like a little girl's diary, but in the UK we say diary for calendar. Um, but yeah, so I'm kind of really glad that you invited me, and here we are. So probably over to you to kind of describe in more detail about the vision that you had for this and what this is all about.
Yeah, so for me, I was getting a lot of emails privately from people in our community. I literally, if you guys want to know a secret of how I make my posts, I wait for people to email me and they'll have a question about the principles, about coaching, about groups. And the very next day, I'll have a post about something that was inspired by an email. And lately, most every single email is, I love what you wrote. I love sharing the principles. How do I share it as a living? How do I share it as a place of service? How do I share it? And it's like, what does it mean to be a coach? What does it mean to get paid? Should I feel guilty for getting paid? And I started to go, there's a common theme. There seems to be a very common theme in our community. And not only is there a common theme, there is a disconnect between sharing something so valuable and feeling like getting paid for it is unspiritual, or asking for money is wrong. And so I wanted to kind of clear up the confusion. And so did Ankush and I. That's how we got into it. And the reason that I actually reached out to Ankush is he's someone that I highly respect on so many levels. Number one, he does this for full time. Like, this is not part-time. For me, I own restaurants and I do coaching. Kush does this 100% of the time. This is how he makes his living. And so for me to actually join with him, I'm probably going to get just as many value on this call and the program we're doing as everyone here. So that's number one. And number two, he's down to earth. Now that sounds really strange. Like what's the big deal about that? And why I say that is because it takes a certain kind of showing up where people believe you. And that's one of the things I want to get to real quick before we get to questions, is those three words, I believe you, is the most important thing that anyone will ever experience. If they don't believe you as a coach, as someone they can trust, as someone that has something to share, and if you sound like you're just some crazy person that had some crazy experience and you're running around trying to save the world, people aren't going to believe you. And what I like about Ankush is he's got a way of describing this stuff. He's got a way of coaching. He's got a way of sharing the principles that makes me say, Kush, I believe what you're saying. I want to hear more. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more. I wanted to end with this, and then you can take it from there. We can take questions, or we can kind of elaborate on this. One of the things that I've also noticed while I've been, if you guys noticed, my last few posts have been about coaching, right? A lot of coaching. And a lot of the time, what I get is someone extracting a word about what I wrote and having a problem with it. Well, you're a principles person. Why did you use coaching in the same sentence? You didn't use service 3 times. You did it twice. And, if this is about service, you should talk about it more. You wrote on there paid, well-paid coach. Why did you put paid? Because the principles shouldn't be about paying, about being paying. It's supposed to be about service. So literally everybody has something to say about the words. which is ironic because then we go in together and we say it's not about the words, right? And we get into this whole thing. But let me make a very clear distinction about paid. Okay. I work at a recovery center, and I do not charge $1. Okay. But I still charge them. They still pay me. Now that doesn't make sense. It's very paradoxical, it sounds like, right? But it's not. As a professional coach, I need them to give me something in exchange for my time that's very important in our profession. Now, they don't pay me financially, but I want them to pay me in the recovery instance with attention. So when I sit there for an hour or two, I make that very clear. I come here and I give you my services for free. I donate my time for you, ladies and gentlemen. But in return, I need you to pay me something for the time I'm giving you. So I want to make sure that what I'm doing is worthwhile for you guys. Is that fair? I'm kind of giving you guys exactly what I do in my recovery group. People's hands get raised, right? And I say, great. Since I'm not charging you financially, are you willing to pay attention in return for me to sit with you guys? Now, what does that do? What does that do? It creates a relationship and a dynamic where we know that there's a different kind of conversation than simply, hey, you guys, get on your phones, do whatever, screw around while I'm here spending my hour with you guys. I'm laying out a foundation of how it's going to look. Okay. So when I said well-paid coach, the people that already assumed what that meant, they already assumed money. And you know why people have this distinction around money? Because they're so scared of it. Oh, you said paid, and then the principles you're not supposed to pay. Well, nobody ever asked me, well, what did you mean by pay? How much? How do you charge? It's already assumed. The very people in our community that should be very good about not assuming already make assumptions, right? So we got to be very, very careful. We got to be very careful. That's the first thing I want to say is that as we discuss things in this group, as Ankush and I are going to discuss, have an open mind about coaching. Have an open mind what it means to connect coaching with the 3 principles. Have an open mind if something looks like a strategy and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't want to go there. It looks like a strategy. Just have an open mind and see what feels right for you. We're going to give you my experience. Kush is going to give his experience. We're going to tell you what has worked and what hasn't. That doesn't mean it's the blueprint for you guys. It just simply means this is what we've seen. And if you want to look at that direction, you may see something as well. Does that make sense? Yeah? Are you guys good with that? So Kush, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, I wanted to totally disagree with you, and I think you're a horrible, horrible person for trying to commercialize the principles. No, I love what you said, Amir, and you know, I've had a lot of my own thinking around, and maybe this is a good topic to talk about is money, and I had a lot of my own thinking around money. I would be lying to say that I don't still have thinking around money, and that I'm not a perfect human being. Do I have blind spots? Of course I do. Thankfully, I don't need to be perfect to do the work that I do, you know, but it's helpful for me to keep exploring that. And I remember I went on a coaching school a few years ago, and I was in the coaching school, and there was a guy, I think it was a guy, maybe it was a lady, and the coach at the front of the room, this wasn't a 3P school, said, you know, what would you like to get from this school? And one person put their hand up and said, I want to make a shitload of money, right? And I looked at them and I judged them. I judged them because to me, that wasn't right. You know, that's not what I got into coaching for. It's not why anybody should be in coaching. And I had a lot of judgment on it. And I even went up to the course leader and I said, you know, I think you should really address that because, you know, that's what I'm not in this room for that. And and I had this whole load of thinking around it. And, you know, what occurred to me over, you know, a period of time was something that I didn't expect. Right? I didn't expect this. What I didn't expect was that for me to grow my business, and I run this as a business. This is like Amir says, this is what I went all in. I kind of followed my gut. I was scared, and I quit my corporate job, and I said, I want to do this full time. And it really touches me when I work with people. And, you know, there's at least a couple of people in here who I've coached, you know, previously, and I think more than that. And, you know, I find it the most rewarding work ever. And I had a lot of judgment in my head around what it would mean to make more money doing this work. And what I didn't realize is, and this doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's true, but certainly what I see is that in order for me to make more money, it didn't mean stepping away from the principles, right? It didn't mean stepping away from service. It didn't mean stepping away from love. What I saw was that for me to make more money, for me to be well paid, whatever that means, for me to, you know, let's even use the term that this other person used, for me to make a shitload of money, right? Let's say that is my aim, to make a shitload of money. I found the most effective way to do that is to really come more from love, really come more from service, really give more value to people, right? Not give less. And Amir and I have spoken about this, and I'm not going to mention any names, but certainly something that I've seen over the years is, you know, be careful what you see online. Just because someone looks like they're making a lot of money doesn't mean they're actually making a lot of money. And just because we don't see someone a lot online doesn't mean they're not making a lot of money, right? And I've been amazed, I don't know if this has happened to you, Amir, but there's been a few times over the last few years where I've spoken to people that I've looked up to who I just assumed were really doing very well, having loads of clients. And they said to me, oh, Ankush, I'm really struggling. Or if I'm not struggling, yeah, we're finding it challenging to sign people up to this. Or we're finding it more difficult to get clients coming in to work with us. All is not what it seems in Facebook land, if you like. And on the flip side, coaches, whether they're in the 3P world or outside the 3P world, who give the most, who really embody, to me, loving service, really, really do well. And what I found, tying this back to the principles, is why would I not do that? And I wouldn't do that because of my own misunderstandings. And I'll give you an example, right? When I started learning the principles, I went and coached my boss. I went and coached my boss's boss, right? I just had very little thinking about that. I worked in a great organization. I was very well respected. I got on really well with them. And guess what? By doing that, I learned a lot. I didn't charge them. I learned a lot. I got a lot of experience. And what happened was my boss actually said to me, I'll give you a 10 grand pay rise if you stay with us and you do this work in the company 1 day a week. That came out of me just going and helping them. Now, I didn't actually take that. I moved jobs, right? But there were other people who I didn't talk to. So also in the first year of me learning about the principles and being a coach, people would say to me, hey, Ankush, what are you up to nowadays? And rather than saying, you know what, I've been starting this coaching program and I've learned about something which has just blown my world, right? It's changed everything that I thought I knew and turned it on its head. They would say to me, hey, so what are you up to nowadays? You know, the usual. Why? Because I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid of what they would think about me. I didn't want anyone to know I was a coach, anyone that was close to me. I was like, let me hide all of that. And then once I've done well, then I can go back to people who know me and say, hey, you know what, I'm doing this coach. Yeah, but you know, I've got this client, this client, this client, right? That's based on misunderstanding. That's based on taking my insecurities as reality. And I see this across all coaches now, like especially in the 3P world. We already know what to do. We know someone who would work with us, who would really benefit from working with us, who we can really help. but we don't go and talk to that person because of load of thinking. And this is, by the way, not something that, oh, I used to be like that and I got over it. This is true for me right now. That even now there are people I put on in different buckets. That this person over there, I recently did this. I used to work for a really large construction company in the UK. It had 5,000 employees. It had a couple of £1 billion turnover, right, about $3 billion. It's a decent sized company. And the managing director of that company, I knew. I joined them on the graduate scheme, and I knew this guy, and I reached out to him. I don't know why. I reached out to him on a whim on LinkedIn. He's the most senior guy I know on LinkedIn. And I wrote something from my heart. I had nothing on my mind, wrote to him. He immediately responded. I then got in my head and was like, oh my God, right? Wrote from my head, no response. Wrote from my head again, no response. A couple of weeks later, after I got some coaching on it, I wrote to this guy again, but went back to my heart. Right? And I wrote again from my heart, like, not worrying about signing him up, not worrying about what he would think about me, not worrying about what it meant, dropping all of that, and wrote again from my heart. This guy who is so senior, he's now the global CFO of a $20 billion company, right? Maybe bigger than that. He rings me, right? I don't pick up the phone because I was in the gym. I didn't recognize the number. I thought I'd get back to him. He left me a message. I'm busy for the next 2 days. I thought, okay, I'll ring him in a couple of days. Before the day ended, he rings me a second time, right? And then afterwards, I was like, okay, now what do I do with this? Right? We had a quick conversation. I'll be honest, I was in my head a little bit in that conversation, right? But afterwards, I was like, well, I know what would help is if I follow this up. I wrote him a letter, sent him a book, and I was so scared to do that, right? Because I've made this into something, but I did. Now, whether he reads it or not, I don't know. Whether he comes back to me or not, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But really, that's what it's all about. That's what we're talking about. You know, it's about getting over that, or not even getting over it. It's like just showing up anyway. Like when we're professionals, if, you know, Michael, I see you work in a gym. Look, if you don't feel like training a client and they've signed up, you're still going to train the client, right? I used to work in purchasing. It didn't matter if I didn't feel like doing something. If my boss asked me to do it and there was a project to do, I would do it, right? And in the same way, the reason why, part of the reason at least that we've called this the professionals is this is a profession. And so it's really the same as a job. And I think one of the misunderstandings is that, you know, I'm going to escape from the corporate world. I'm going to escape from the job, which is icky. Oh yeah, outside in, they're just all about money. And I'm going to do this wonderful thing called coaching, which is really heart-centered and warm and fuzzy and lovely, right? And we forget that there's stuff involved in whatever we do for a living. And that's an outside-in misunderstanding, to escape from that and do this. And I think that's why, you know, so many of us struggle. I used to have this misunderstanding. So this is really about being a professional. It is about being well paid, not because we're really fanatical about money, but because if you look at what does it take to be well paid, in my opinion, it requires you to get over yourself. It requires you to get over your misunderstandings. You have to deliver value. You have to come from a place of love. And so, you know, that's kind of where we're coming from. At least that's my opinion. I don't know if, Amir, you've got a different viewpoint on that, but
No, that was brilliant, man. I loved everything that you said. And you know, when we say well paid, remember, we're making it up. Well paid according to whom, right? Well paid according to what standard? And what's ironic is in our community, as soon as we see well paid, it immediately goes to disgust or filth or you know, not spiritual or lack of spirituality, which is a very strange direction immediately when we talk about money, right? Well paid could be a hug from a recovery addict. Well paid could be $5 for them to say, look, I've given my, I'm trying to be a coach and I want to learn how to charge people. I've charged a client $10 because that was enough for them to feel some sort of leverage, like it was a leverage, right? And so one of the biggest lessons I've learned is why I love the principles with coaching is I get to actually show up in real time and have this dialogue with my client. Hey, I'm actually very insecure about this conversation with you around coaching. I'm actually having a little thinking around money right now. I'll explain to you why I'm having it. Your coaching, your enrollment becomes part of the process. This is one of the few paradigms where it's actually okay to be insecure. It's actually okay to show them that you get lost in thought. Like most other ones, they teach you how to reframe it, pre-frame it, make it look prettier, make it black and white, all sorts of, tricks. But this is the only one that's the closest to reality in which you can bring your coaching into it. That's brilliant, right? So if someone says, hey, I don't have the money, we talk about it. Well, okay. Well, what is it about the money that you don't have? Why don't you have it? What would make it? Whatever. And here's the thing, Kirsten. I want to get to this, and I want to get to the question. She said, "Do you consider a person's situation when coming up with a fee? Different people have varying incomes, not only based on where in the world they are, but based on their job commitments. If someone truly cannot afford to work with you, or their chosen coach, would you suggest to lower the fee or let the person find another coach?" Folks, there is no rules. That's the whole point. I have no idea. One of the bases of coaching is you need to get them in front of you. You need to speak to the person. How dare I make an assumption about where they're at without even speaking to them? And that's what's happening with our community. A lot of people in our coaching community give you these secrets of how to get clients, and the client's not in the room, which means that's a dirty way to do coaching. Like this template I'm going to give you works on everybody. Just do this. Get them in a funnel. Get them in this tactic. And all of a sudden, the humanity part of it is gone. If that's the kind of coach you want to be, get off this call. You're not going to enjoy this. This is not for you. Find another kind of community. I'm just telling you, the more I understand the principles, the deeper I get, the deeper my coaching connection becomes. They're not separate. It's actually very quite harmonious, right? It's very harmonious. And so one way I check myself is when things like that arise. If someone comes to me and asks a question like this, like, well, would you work with them if they don't have money? Well, from a principles perspective, I'm not even thinking about money yet. Like, where did the money come up? I haven't even had a dialogue with the person, right? And so that's something that's really, really important to me when we're having this. This is a relationship. It's a profession, but this profession cannot work without having a deep relationship with the person you're in front of, or the people in your program you're in front of, which means I spend my majority of my time finding out who they are before we've even discussed money. Money is, the irony is people spend so much time getting mad about me about, oh, you're talking about money and you're coaching and you want to charge a lot. Or I don't even talk about money with my clients until I'm at the very end. And sometimes after the dialogue, if it doesn't occur to me to talk about money, guess what? I don't talk about money. I refer them to somebody. I'll send them the book. I'll send them to Ankush because he's a lot cheaper as a coach than I am. No, I'm just kidding. But you guys know what I mean, right? It has nothing to do with that. We get way ahead of the game. I'll give you guys my first strategy. If you guys want a strategy of how Ankush and I do it, get off social media, get off email, pick up the phone and talk to people. Find out who they are. Find out what they need. Find out what's going on in their world, right? That's, strategy 101 for me. That's the first thing. Get off and get a one-on-one dialogue with people. What is it that they need? Where are they looking to go? How much thinking do they have around stuff, right? And what's cool is when they say, this is the most beautiful part of our profession, they'll say, I have thinking around money. And guess what? This is the only profession where you can say, me too. And you don't look bad. And you don't look like any less than anybody else. And you can have a dialogue around that. And because you have now showed up on their level, although you are the coach and professional, there's a deeper connection with that person. That's magical. That's magical. So this hour is not about how to trick people into coaching, trick people into rolling. It's quite the opposite. It's how to connect enough where some sort of exchange is needed or wanted or useful in order to continue the dialogue. Now, here's the cool thing. They can say no. This is not a forceful, this is not a, well, I'm going to trick them or force them to work with me. It's quite the opposite. If someone doesn't want to work with me, I don't want to work with them. This is beautiful. This is a really good thing for us. So I want you guys to kind of consider all this. There's a lot of things to untangle, and I apologize we're getting kind of in the untangling part of it, but we'll get to your questions, and I'm happy to get on to your questions now, unless Ankush has something else to add, but we can get right to the questions.
I've got loads of stuff to say about that. I mean, would it be helpful if I share that based on Kirsten's question?
Absolutely.
I love what you said, and I love that the truth is there's no answer, right? And I think the beauty of our industry right now is there's so much, like just between your group and my group, Amir, there is so much content. There's so much content. There's so much available for people free of charge. And I always say this when someone says to me, you know what, I can't afford coaching, right? Apologies, I do live next door to an airport. I seem to say that on every webinar I do. I can't afford coaching, or that's what's holding me back. And I always say, really? Is that really what's holding you back? Because nobody needs coaching. And, let's look at any other area, any other topic in the world. I would say the 3 principles is at least as accessible as anything else, right? There's a website of different practitioners from all around the world. We've got options like Zoom, things so you can connect with different people from all around the world. There are books being released on the principles every single day, right? There are webinars and podcasts and YouTube channels. I mean, there is so much, and you go back 20 years ago and there was virtually nothing. So there're just more options now rather than less. It's more accessible than it's ever been. And I've came across the principles in 2012. It's way more accessible even since 2012 to now, right? And the thing I wanted to mention as well is, like, coaching it's not the same as teaching. And I really respect anyone that teaches. I really respect anyone that's a spiritual guide. But coaching, and I feel like I've been banging on about this, and I'll say it again, to me, coaching is a profession. It really is. And by that, I mean, if nobody knew about the principles, let's say Sid hadn't had his insight and we didn't determine these things called 3 principles, they still exist, right? But let's say we didn't have that language, and let's say Sid hadn't had his insight. Coaching was discovered, I think, in the late 70s. Someone talked about life coaching. And coaching was going along just fine without people knowing about the principles. And it would be very arrogant of us to assume that only coaches who know the principles can help people. That's not true. There are lots of coaches out there who do things maybe a little bit different to the way we do things, but they do help people. If they didn't help people, they wouldn't have clients. People, it's not like people are just gullible and just because they read some marketing, they sign up to someone. Any coach that is doing this full time, you have to deliver something of value. You have to help people. So coaching in and of itself is a profession. It's a job. It's a vocation. It's something that, people do, right? Outside of understanding the principles. And so what we do as 3 principles coaches, or coaches that have an understanding of the principles, is that we work as coaches. That's our profession. But our profession, what we do in that profession, is informed by our understanding of the principles, right? And so it's a very, very different thing. I'm my job isn't let me get someone in a conversation and somehow or other talk to them about the 3Ps, talk to them about Sid Banks, send them the missing link. I might do that, and that's not to be derogatory around. I'm so grateful for the principles. I think, I've said this before, we stand on the shoulders of all those people that have come before us, and I'm very grateful for that. But coaching is different. Coaching is a profession that helps people have a different future than the future they would have had they not hired a coach. It's a support. Just like nobody needs a personal trainer, right? Like, we don't hear people say, you know what, I really wanted to get in shape, but this personal trainer is charging, $50 an hour and I can't afford it, therefore I can't get in shape. You wouldn't, you'd say, well, just go to the gym then, like, what's your problem? We wouldn't say that. We wouldn't say, hey, you know what, I've got this business and I can't afford an accountant, so I can't do my accounts. I can't pay my taxes because I can't afford an accountant. You wouldn't say that, right? I mean, in the UK, we don't pay for doctors per se, but in the US, you wouldn't just say, well, I've got no money, therefore, I want to have, certain medical procedures you get done for free, but you wouldn't turn around and say, well, I want every single thing done for me, but I'm not going to pay for it because I deserve it, right? So it's a human right. That's not the way professions work. We're professionals. We deliver a service and we charge whatever we charge for that. And then people choose to pay it or not. And so for me, it's very much, about the market, right? Like, if I say, hey, you want to work with me? It's $100,000. It doesn't matter what I think, right? I can turn around. Amir, everyone on this call could turn around right now and say, we charge £100,000 or $100,000 to work with us, right? That means nothing. Someone's got to pay you for it. And if they don't think you're worth 100,000, they will not pay you. It doesn't mean anything. So if you're a newer coach and you're just learning the profession, you're learning the trade, you're getting some hours under your belt, you might want to lower your fee to work with people, right? That might make sense for you to do that because it's of benefit to you and it's benefit to the client. And I saw this thing. I forgot the guy's name. There's a coach who's a really not a 3P guy. He's a coach who coaches, like, he coached the CEO of Ford. He coached the head of the World Bank. Like real Marshall Goldsmith. People have probably heard of him, right? And Marshall Goldsmith was talking about giving back. So he was also coming from a good place, talking about giving back. And he said, look, for me, he said, giving back isn't about going into the soup kitchen, right? He goes, I can do that and I can help homeless people. But he said, the best use of my time, given the skills I have, giving back, is to coach the head of the World Bank, because the World Bank their mission is to alleviate worldwide poverty. Because that's amazing. Like, that's a really big goal. And he said, if I can help them do that, which he has done, and he doesn't charge them for it, he goes, that's the best use of my time. And so for me, there's also a piece around this, around what's the best use of my time right now. And I see everyone equally. I sometimes say this, if we're all born equal, then why do we say helping someone who can't afford us is better than helping someone who can? No, then that would say there aren't equal, right? And so sometimes the best use of my time is to say, you know what, here are some resources for you to look at right now. And here are some coaches who are maybe starting out, who are charging a lower fee. And I'm going to use my time to go and, spend with this person over there who can afford my fee. And I know I'm going to be able to have a bigger impact on them in the world, right? And maybe not. There's no cut and dry, like Amir said. And there are times when I have done different things with my pricing, but that's because I want to. It's my business. But I don't get caught into this whole thing of like, I should, or I have to, or like I'm withholding oxygen for someone because I'm not coaching them. Let's be clear, coaching is a luxury, right? If I really, didn't have money, coaching is not going to be on the top of my priority list per se. It might be if I choose to do that, but it's nothing that anybody needs, right? And people have a lot of misunderstanding around that. And in the same way, it's an accountant. I have an accountant, right? I pay her, her professional fee to be my accountant, but I could do it myself. I just really can't be asked. I don't like doing my accounts, and for me, I want to pay someone else to do it. But that's because I understand they're an expert, and I don't have to do that. And I can go to someone cheaper, and I can go to someone more expensive. Coaching is the same. So I just wanted to add that, Amir, to answer Kirsten.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, man. Helen has a question that she posted, but I asked her if she would mind unmuting herself and asking in person, just so we can be clear on the question.
Hi, Amir.
There you are. Hi.
Hi, everybody. So I think the original question, Anka quite effectively answered most of it, but maybe there's another part. So yeah, the question was, and the 3Ps not being the main focus. So it's just something that comes through us as we're doing our other work. I started off, I didn't realize it was coaching, but I started off doing something and then worried about how to incorporate 3 principles understanding. Then I saw one live you did from your car, Amir, and I just stopped panicking about it. I just started turning up to the groups that I run and saw what come up. Did less planning, stopped trying to predict what I needed to talk about, and just got more in the moment and available doing it that way. So yeah, that really, the question's been answered about having not being the main focus. Like I say, going out and saying, right, I'm going to find somebody to talk about the 3 principles to and get them to pay me, etc., etc. But also something that just come up as part of Anka's comments there was the luxury aspect of coaching, and that I'm challenging that because I work with £5 a week groups. They come and pay £5 a week, and sure, the quality and the length of time I spend with people, it still leaves the quality end of the market, if you like, but I'm really passionate about making what we understand or partially understand available to a wider audience. So there's no question.
Yeah, I was going to say, so Ankush, you're so good, you can actually predict future questions. And that's why I'm working with the guy. There's a reason,
We did have someone the other day say they had a dream about me where I coached them in the dream, which was a new one for me. So
charge them. It's easy. You just bill them and get it going right away. Anyone else? Any other? Let's get to the questions. We have a final half an hour. I'd love to hear.
Well, can I say something about Helen? Like you said, you didn't say this, but you said, does having a 3P focus alongside another focus make sense? I don't think 3P is the focus because nobody cares about 3P. Like our clients don't. They don't know about it. They don't care about it. When we talk about it, are you trying to enroll me in a cult? That's not what it's about. It's about meeting people. And I think that's the most respectful thing to do, by the way. It's not about manipulation. It's about meeting people where they're at. So if someone says, hey, I want to make more money, great. And I want to listen to them and hear where they've got misunderstanding around that. Right? If someone says, I'm struggling with my relationship with my partner, great. Let's talk about that. Right? So I can be a relationship coach, a business coach, a health coach, a stress coach, whatever you want to call it, a parenting coach. I can be every kind of coach there is, as long as I don't make, it's about the 3Ps. No, it's about the client. And it just, you will use your understanding of the 3Ps to follow where to go, to ask the questions you want to ask, to help them uncover it. I remember when I started coaching, I mean, even now, some people are like, wow, Ankush, you're a masterful coach. I'm not a masterful coach. I've just got the 3Ps in my back, you know? So like if someone's saying to me, oh, you know, well, my wife really annoys me when she does this, right? Now I know that's a misunderstanding. I'm not trying to figure out a way how to coach them, this and the other. I just know that's not true. So I might ask the person, well, is that true? Is she really upsetting you every time? Now they might go, oh my God, I never thought about it. You're a masterful coach. No, it's just, that's because I know. And they might say, yes, yeah, every time, right? I might say, does she upset everyone when she talks? Right? Has there ever been a time, well, years ago, she didn't upset me when she talked. Well, what changed? Right? And I'm just kind of playing around with it and exploring based on my understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of preoccupation with qualifications and certifications, and it's really just more simpler than that, isn't it?
Yeah, nobody
Taking
cares.
Experiences that you're offering. I mean, I value what you're offering here, but yeah, there seems to be too much pursuit of validation and authority, and
nobody cares. On my website, I don't have my qualifications. I used to. Nobody cares. No one's interested.
Yeah, it's about
what qualifications are.
That connection. And do you pass it back to the person that you're working with quickly? So when people say, oh, you're a super coach, and try and, you know, sort of attribute the change to you, do you pass it back quickly to them?
Like, oh, here's the thing, right? You know, and this again is not 3Ps, but something I read ages ago was, look, when someone gives you a compliment, the best thing you can say is thank you, right? Because I don't, you know, it's not like, no, there's like this whole false modesty around it and whatever. Now, I'll obviously want my clients to realize, look, you've done the work. This is your insight. But at the same time, I don't want to have that, like, no, don't, you know, because that's kind of a bit weird too, right?
Yeah.
So for me, and again, it's not about what you say, what you do. It's just about whatever makes sense in the moment and what's helpful. And you know what? Like what I say today now, it's going to be different if you ask me in 6 months' time or a year's time. And the one thing that's been consistent ever since I've learned about the principles is every 6 months or so, I look back and I think, God, I was different 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wanted to add something real quick that I think would be worthwhile for everyone here is, you know, what it looks like to me when we talk about credentials, or should I call myself a health coach, a 3P coach, you know, I even said coach purse, like it doesn't, you know, whatever, what do we call it ourselves? And it reminds me of like being, you know, I'm in San Diego on the beach. Someone's in the water saying, help, help, help. And I'm sitting on the beach going, should I call myself a lifeguard or a good swimmer? Do you think they need my credentials before I go in there? It's like, it sounds like such a weird thing to consider when someone's asking for something. Here's an additional thing I would say. By knowing the principles, there's actually nobody drowning. Yet we're still on the land and we think they're drowning and we think we need a name to save someone that's not drowning. That's so weird, right? So forget about the names. Forget about them drowning. No one's drowning and your name's not going to make a difference. It's two people having a dialogue.
Just connect.
So that's it, right? Just simply connect. It's like they're saying, hey, I need to lose weight. What most people do is go, oh, that's funny. I'm a weight loss coach. Come check out my website, blah, 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 blah. Here's what I do. Tell me more. See, it's not about me. That's what's beautiful about coaching. We immediately think that we need to show up as the person that has the answers. We need to, well, if you know the principles, we know that they have the capacity for an insight. So all we are is, you know, facilitators for them to get an answer. So Arvin asked, what's the difference between a teacher and a coach? A teacher, for example, when I go to my recovery center, the psychologists before me talk about how certain chemicals change the brain, why drugs are so are so what's addictive, and they teach you, right? And you sit there and you learn. Coaching is facilitating for them to see something themselves, right? Like if I want to learn how to drive a car, I'm not going to go ask George Pransky, right? I'm going to go talk to someone that knows how to drive a car. Or if I want to know how to make pancakes, right? I don't think Elsie Spittle, I'm assuming, probably makes wonderful pancakes, but you know what I mean. I'm probably not going to ask. I'm going to ask a chef or something. I'm making a metaphor. The point of it is that if you are looking to be taught, you go to a teacher. If you are looking to see something for yourself, in my experience as a coach, that's my job, is for me to say, I'm the least important thing in this equation because you have everything you need. And then they go, well, the first question people ask is, why should I pay you? And my only answer is just to remind you that you have everything you need. And if you want to keep paying me for that, then so be it. But I'm going to keep pointing you into the same direction over and over and over again until one day they say, I have everything I need. Well, why didn't you tell me that the first time? And it's like, well, that's what I did, right? And so to me, that is one of the differences, Arvin, is between teaching and coaching. I hope that made sense.
I just want to add something to that, Amir, because, and I think it's important, and some people may disagree. You might disagree with me, Amir, as well, and that's okay. You know, we'll have differences of opinion on certain things. But for me, coaching it doesn't mean it's only, but coaching includes outcomes to me, right? So, if I'm teaching someone the 3 principles, I don't really care what happens. All I care about is them seeing how life works, right? So when I'm teaching the principles, which I do too, right? That's all I care about. I want them to see how life really works, how they're creating their reality. And then that will lead to lots of insights and things changing in their life. What those are, I have no idea, right? But that's all I care about. When I'm coaching somebody, typically I'm coaching them for a result or a certain change that they want. That's the difference. So, for example, if someone says to me, I've got a client at the moment, he's like, I'm really struggling in my relationship with my wife. Okay. So when I'm coaching him, my coaching is designed, everything I'm thinking about is helping him have a better relationship with his wife, right? Or at least to be able to separate amicably, which is what he wants. Okay. Now, as we've coached, has it impacted other areas of his life? Sure. But that's what's very specifically in mind. That's what he's hiring me for. And if I go off and start talking about loads of other random stuff, he can come back. And this happens. I think other 3P coaches I've heard suffer from this, where someone hires them, they go, yeah, I can help you with this. And they put out loads of marketing, and then people sign up. And then it's like, well, let me talk to you about how life works. And then 3-4 months down the line, the person's like, well, I hired you because you said you can help me with this. And yeah, you're great. You told me how the mind works, but I haven't seen a change in this, which is what I hired you for. And that's when, we can get into a whole host of issues. Whereas for me, it's like, no, if you've paid me, and this actually happened. I had a client who hired me for a year, and it was a lot of money he paid me, and he wanted me to help. He'd worked with me beforehand for other things, and he was so impacted. He said, I want to do this work. I said, great. And he worked with me for a year, and we were about, 6-8 months into the coaching, and it was a year-long program. And I just said, I just want to check in. We're 6-8 months in. You've hired me. You've paid me a lot of money. How's this going for you? And he said, it's great. And I've had so many insights, and it's wonderful. And, I'm really, really happy. And I said, well, what did you hire me for? And he said, well, I hired you for me to quit my job and do this work and help people in my own country. I said, great. Do you think you're on track for that? And he went, well, no. And I said, okay, do you want to be? Because we can use the remaining, 4 or 5 months we've got left to help you move in that direction. We don't have to. I don't care, right? You're the one that's paying for it. But if you want to do that, we can focus on that, or we can not. It's totally up to you. And he said, no, that's what I really want. And I said, great. And that's what we focused on. Now, up until that point, he'd got insights, and he'd learned more about the principles, and that was all great. But coaching for me is different. And I have both. I have spiritual teachers. So I've worked with Dick and Bettinger one-on-one, Chip Chipman one-on-one, Keith Blevins a lot one-on-one, and I'm working with Keith Blevins one-on-one at the moment. And it's really wonderful. And what I pay him for is teaching, help me to see how the mind works deeper. That's what I pay for. But I also have a coach. And what I pay a coach for is not that. I pay a coach for me as a business coach to help me grow my business. Specifically, that's what I pay him for. Right. And they're two very, very different things. And I see that also, in the work that we do. Right. And it just so happens, by the way, that you charge more, or you can charge more, you can make more money being a coach than you can be a teacher. And for me, that makes total sense, because I pay more for my coach than I pay for a teacher, and I would pay more for that, right? Whether you think that's right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the world we live in. People will pay for an outcome, right? And, just think about it for yourselves. There's someone out there who will say, I would pay any money in the world to have a better relationship with my son, right? Now, if you said to that same guy, do you want to know how the mind works? Probably not interested. Do you want to have me be your spiritual guide? Maybe not. But it's a different thing to being a coach, and people pay differently for that. I pay differently for that.
Mm-hmm.
Useful?
Yes, very useful, Ankush. Thank you.
All right, so we have a little bit of time left. Let's see if we can get a couple more questions, or at least one more in here. I'd love to hear what anyone has to say.
Well, if no one's got a question, Amir, do you want to talk about, we've had a lot of people ask us about the logistics of what we're doing and how that works?
Sure. So this was a very generalized Zoom call. Obviously, we have a lot of people on here, and we're just kind of unpacking a lot of stuff. Ankush and I it's next month on the 7th, right? It starts. We wanted to get into the specifics of, what do you do when someone's in front of you? What do you do when someone asks, about price? What do you do if someone says, I need to talk to my husband or my wife or my kids or my boss? What do you do? Like specific things that I'm sure Ankush and I have gone and heard a lot of times, and that we've actually went out into the real world and tried, right? And some things have worked, some things haven't. Now, I made it very clear, and maybe Ankush has a different idea, and I'll let you speak to it as well. This is not going to be an hour. Our program runs for 3 months. Okay, it's specifically for coaches, right? Specifically for enrolling clients, getting coaching clients, and becoming a professional, right? So it's not going to be about sitting in a good feeling. It's not going to be about the 3 principles per se, although the principles are going to be the backbone of everything we do anyways. But this is specifically how to get clients, how to show up professionally, how to enroll, how to show up where people can say, that's someone you need to work with. That person is someone that really changed my life. You need to get a dialogue with them. How does that happen, right? And I'm really looking forward to it. One of the things that Ankush and I really like is this is not going to be a big group. We want to be able to have this is going to be almost like as close to one-on-one as possible, but for very minimal cost, right? And that's what we wanted to do. We're speaking about price. This is not going to be the biggest money maker for us, because that's not what, we weren't there for that. We're there to literally serve the people that are in this profession that need some sort of guidance from beginning to end, or if you're already a coach from middle to end, or if you're a really good coach, from end to ender, and make it a little bit better and see the things you're not seeing, wherever you're at, it doesn't really matter. And just have fun with it. And in that hour is not where the magic's going to be. Because what Ankush and I want to do is, as soon as we get off the phone or the Zoom call, go out there and try it. If you come back and you haven't done anything, the group's not going to be worthwhile for you. So I want you guys to go running with this, get an idea, get an insight, see something change, come back the next week and say, this is what I've done. I've spoken to 5 people. I've spoken to 3 people. I spoke to that one person that I had this disconnect with. This is what happened. And then we talk about it and we do it again and we do it again until the end of 3 months. My goal and Ankush's goal is that anyone that joins the program says, I was able to pay for this program by the 3 months I spent with them. That's what my goal is going to be, that I did the work. And not only did I pay for this program with what I learned, but I was able to get 3 more clients. I actually made money by being in this program. That's what my goal is going to be. And Ankush, I don't know if you want to add to that or what your idea is.
Yeah, I love what you said, Amir, and I'll add we've already had a bunch of people pre-sign up for this already and are in our group, and I've spoken to a few people about it, and I've said I want to be really specific about the kind of person we want in the group, because like you've said, this isn't about learning the principles, it's not about grounding, it's not about although, of course, that will inform everything we do anyway. We can't not have that inform our work. But really, the focus of what we're doing is, like you say, the practicalities of what we've learned over the years. And I see this all the time, where I see a 3P person. Like I'll give you an example. I was at the conference in London a few months ago, and George Pransky did the closing out speech. And I was listening to it and watching him, and I was like, this is a masterclass. This is amazing. And I don't know, and maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know if he realized consciously what he was doing, but based on what I've learned, I could see, oh, that and that of what he's done is exactly why this guy, it does so well financially and is one of the more successful people in the principles world. And for me, a lot of that stuff wasn't obvious. For a very long time, I would do, I'd talk to someone and someone would sign up, and I'd talk to someone else. I'm like scratching my head. I have no idea why they did or didn't sign up. And it's not about like techniques or manipulation, but it's about seeing things that we see very, very clearly around what can help people. And we really want to share that with other coaches to say, look, if you want to do this work, if you want to help people, and you want to be a professional doing this work from a good place, have a good heart, not from manipulation, then that's what we want to make visible, because I don't see a lot of that conversation going on. And often the devil's in the detail, right? Maybe we should say God is in the detail, right? Where someone might listen to something that Amir or I have said, or Steve Chandler or someone else, and they'll hear us say something like, oh, be of service. But it's only when you talk to a coach where you go, well, I'm being of service, but this person isn't signing up. But just in a practical way, Amir or I might look at the emails you've sent, or you tell us about what you've done, and we're like, oh, we can see very clearly why you're misunderstanding what we said. But what I find is having those discussions is what really helps. So for me, what I'm looking to do is on the webinars we have 7 webinars. I want it to be loads of Q&A, and also the private Facebook group, people really asking questions, and everyone's going to get a laser coaching session with either Amir or myself, because we want people to dive into that. And the beauty is, often when you hear someone else get coached on a specific, you might not even realize you have that question. But what we found, or certainly I found when I've done other programs like this, is that people go, oh, I heard you coach John, and John was asking about where to find clients. And I didn't even have a question about that, but it was so helpful because I realized I didn't see it as clearly as you made out, for example.
And that is going to be our group. And I'm really looking forward to it. And again, for me, Kush, this is really a one-off. Like my thing isn't coaching coaches. It never really has been. It's not saying that that's good or bad. I like getting back into the spiritual side and all that. But like when me and Ankush were talking, this is really needed in our community. I want it so by the end of our 3 months, nobody says, how do I get a client? How do I share the principles with someone? How do I make this a profession? That's going to be my goal. It's a very big, extravagant goal, but it's doable nonetheless. It's very doable. It's very, I wouldn't say it's easy. I'm not going to say that, but it is doable. And not only that, it can be fun. It could be exciting. It doesn't have to be dreadful. And when you have support like Ankush and I, like it's very rare, what I really like, to be honest with you, and I told this to Ankush in our other Zoom call, I secretly worked with him because I learned so much from him, like just on a personal level. He does this so beautifully that I get out of the calls and go, cool, man. I learned as much as the people there. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I love teaching you a lot, Amir. It really is fulfilling.
Thank you. And you'll also notice he's very humble. And that's another thing about him. That quality, his humbleness is just through the roof. But if you guys, and again, I don't want to turn this into a whole thing, but if you guys are interested, if you guys want to know more, contact Kush, contact me. We'll post a link on the thing. And after that, in my group, ladies and gentlemen, after this program's done, there's no more selling anything. Like for me, it's going to go back to where I used to do. Maybe I'll do a group maybe in a year or two, but I just wanted to get this out. And I think it's, like I said, it's much needed in our community. I hope this was worthwhile for you guys. This went by way too fast. I was hoping we could do another 4 hours of this, but if you still have questions, if there's still thoughts or ideas, post them in the comments where I post this video. I'm going to post this video. I'll put the link to the program, but if there's any other questions you have in regards to coaching, please don't be shy and put it on there. And Lynn says she has to take a phone call, which means we have to go too. So thank you everyone for joining us. And any last words, Kush? You good?
No, loved it. Thank you for inviting me on here, and yeah, looking forward to getting the group going. I'm excited.
Me too, bud. I'll talk to you guys soon. Paul, go put on a shirt. Get out of here. Leave us alone. See you guys.
Bye.